Especially in the US, there's been a lot of talk recently about inflation. Here's a clip from The Late Show with Stephen Colbert back in April of 2022.
Overall, the items hit hardest by rising prices are food, shelter, and gasoline. So you shouldn't be affected as long as you don't eat anything, be anywhere, or go anyplace.
At the time of this recording in July of 2022, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that there is a legitimate cause for concern because consumer index prices are 9.1% higher year over year. That's the largest increase in nearly 40 years. But I'm not going to sit here and analyze why inflation is happening or how the government needs to solve for it. This isn't that kind of podcast, thank God. Instead, in the first part of our episode today, we'll dive into different ways that marketers, salespeople, and product experts can address growing worries that consumers have about higher costs of living. And you'll get a few ideas on how to better attract and retain customers who are really worried about costs. In the second half of this episode, I sit down with Gene Marks to talk about a business tactic called shrinkflation, which Gene argues isn't illegal or necessarily unethical for protecting profit margins, but it might be really annoying for customers. I'll be practicing shrinkflation with my wife if I don't use any soap and I'm just smelly around my house. She's getting less than what she signed up for there.
But there's that whole debate about, the Ashton Kutcher he doesn't shower every day debate, so you could use him as a reference and say, listen, I'm protecting the environment. Okay.
Okay. Let's start by looking at what inflation means for corporations right now. It's a consumer perception problem. Consumers are anxious about prices and they're looking for somewhere to point the blame. So a smart business will figure out a way to work on improving these perceptions. One approach is to creatively make a show of good faith pricing like Old Navy is doing. Starting back in April, they launched this campaign of Price on Lock, where they are freezing prices on a specific children's clothing line to make back-to-school shopping a little less stressful this summer.
Put your hands in the air, like you just don't care. Back with my bestie.
In case you're only listening to the show, I did in fact just shake my booty to that commercial because, well, the song is pretty catchy. Anyway, the Harvard Business Review put out an article with a few ideas on how to maneuver your pricing to help with climbing labor, energy, or raw material costs. One that caught my attention was this idea of adjusting the product offering mix. They write that during a period of inflation, what a company makes can be even more important than who it sells to. It's critical to have a SKU-level view of profitability. Just as firing bad customers makes sense, so does dropping marginally profitable products. I like this idea of altering your product mix. If you're a SaaS company, maybe that means building specific features to a higher price tier for new customers. If you're an agency or reseller of some sort, maybe that means adding volume-based pricing for current customers with contract extension offers. And I guess that's kind of what Old Navy is doing here, right? They probably took a look at margins on kids' clothes and seasonal swings and said, all right, if we lock in prices for a specific period of time, is it going to hurt margins, help them, keep them the same? My guess is they found a sweet spot and that this isn't necessarily a huge margin, that they're making off of this campaign. I bet they make a lot more money off of higher ticket items, maybe in the fall or the winter. But who am I to say? Besides crunching the numbers on pricing, the Boston Consulting Group said that one of the biggest mistakes companies make is by updating prices too slowly. They believe that the longer the time lag between cost increase and decision to raise prices, the longer the company risks a declined profit. They recommend breaking away from slower planning cycles based on the calendar and set up ways to react in real time by setting up like a team or a committee dedicated to tracking and implementing robust, dynamic pricing responses. Look, I'm just trying to imagine here at PandaDoc, how would that even work? We have a bunch of BizOps folks who are in a private Slack channel discussing Tableau reports on which regions and days need to have pricing changes. We're just not set up to handle that day-by-day pricing change based on foreign exchange rates or competitors' pricing. Instead, I think what's probably most doable with a business model like ours, which deals in annual contracts, is to further incentivize multi-year contracts with reduced pricing, which basically means revamping our training and discounting for the sales and CSM teams to incentivize customers to look at longer contracts that lock in better rates, because if inflation is telling us that prices may go up next year or the year after, so 2 to 3, 4-year contracts might be the way to go. That's all I've got for you this time. And look, if you're a company worrying about this, I promise, just ride this out. Try to get creative with the tools you have. Inflation periods will pass. They always do. And if you're really desperate, you you can create videos like me or Old Navy dancing about locked-in prices. So we'll be right back, and when we come back, you'll learn about a third strategy called shrinkflation and how and if companies should test this out to protect their margins when costs are high. And if you're just listening to this, I am still dancing. So thanks so much. Today, we're talking with Gene Marks about an economic concept called shrinkflation. Our guest here believes that this might be a business tactic that you and your team can try in order to ensure that inflation doesn't cut into your profits or impact your market cap. Gene is the president of the Marks Group and a regular columnist for Forbes, Entrepreneur, The Hill, and the Philadelphia Inquirer. He's also the host of a popular small business podcast called Small Biz Ahead, sponsored by The Hartford Insurance. And you can listen to his latest shows by visiting sba.thehartford.com. Gene, welcome to the show.
Travis, thanks for having me on.
All right, Gene, before preparing for this interview, got to admit, I didn't know what the heck shrinkflation is or was, but you wrote about it in your article for The Hill, and you talked about your experiences staying in hotels and witnessing shrinkflation. Do you mind helping us understand what shrinkflation looks like?
Yeah. So shrinkflation is where you sell a little less of something, but for the same price, right? So, everybody is trying to deal, Travis, right now with navigating their way around inflation. So the standard sort of knee-jerk reaction is to charge higher prices to your customers, which may or may not be a good idea depending on the customer and depending on your situation. So what a lot of big brands are doing is they are surreptitiously practicing shrinkflation. Now, I gave the example in hotels, but I've got some other examples to even give you as well, if you'll indulge me. For starters, like I wrote about in The Hill, if you go, I travel a lot. So if you go to hotels nowadays, specific, not the big luxury brands, but, the sort of business chains that you'll encounter. If you don't pay attention, you might notice that you're getting a little less service and a little less amenities than you got pre-COVID, like now, if you want your room cleaned, you got to make the request for doing that. If you go into the shower and there's no longer the little individual soaps or shampoos that are there. Now I'm seeing like those big tubs of things that you have to squeegee out, the body soap, which I don't even know how to use body soap, by the way. I like a bar. And that's like included as well. Sometimes like pillows are lacking. Bottles of water, which used to be free, I've noticed aren't necessarily free. And certain amenities in the hotel itself, depending on the resort that you might be at, there might be a separate resort fee, or there might be certain things that you didn't have access to. You had access to before, like chairs or towels, that now you don't unless you pay something extra. Now, all of these changes have been made sort of quietly, but if one change has not been made, and that's the price of the rooms, because the room prices are pretty much the same. In fact, they've gone up, So when you compare it, you're paying the same price for a room that you paid back in, say, 2019, but you're getting just a little bit less service for it. It's not talked about that much. And I give you some other examples, like just so you know, right? Like say you go to Walmart, okay? Their great value paper towels. You can check this out, Travis, okay? There used to be 168 sheets per roll, but now there's only 120 sheets per roll. Same price, Or if you buy a bag of Doritos, and to me, this is blasphemy, but a bag of Doritos used to be 9.75 ounces. Now it's 9.25 ounces, and it's the same price, right? So you're getting a few less Doritos. You're paying for it. They're not increasing the price. You're not paying more for the bag. You're just getting a little less products, part of it. How about this one? This will panic a lot of people. Toilet paper, Charmin toilet paper, 650 sheets per roll. It used to be, and they're mega rolls. Now it's about half of that, And the sheets themselves have gotten smaller as well. You can imagine, the impact that has on society. And then, of course, hefty bags. There used to be, if you buy the hefty mega pack, it used to be 90 bags. Now it's 80 bags. But again, it's the same price. So that's what shrinkflation is. Long answer to a short question, but it's just you're charging the same price, but you're just delivering a little bit less. And that's how you're making up for cost increases. Does that make sense?
It does. And those are all great examples. Going back to the bar of soap one, I guess I'll be practicing shrinkflation with my wife if I don't use any soap and I'm just smelly around my house. She's getting less than what she signed up for there. But
there's that whole debate about, the Ashton Kutcher he doesn't shower every day debate, so you could use him as a reference and say, listen, I'm protecting the environment. Okay.
So another thing in your article from The Hill is that you said small and mid-sized business owners should look to these bigger brands and maybe even copy what the Marriotts, the Hiltons, the Hyatts are doing in order to protect their profits. So let's say I work at a mid-sized company, which I do, and we offer a subscription-based software, which I do, PandaDoc. How would a company, like that think about shrinkflation and how they might leverage it to their benefit?
Well, it's just, you're charging a subscription fee for a certain level of services. And so, you can continue charging the same fee, but basically provide a little bit less level of services for the fee. So, I don't want, you brought it up, but if I pick on PandaDoc and you go to PandaDoc's website and you look at what the monthly subscription is, and you've got the different plans that PandaDoc, offers. Listen, who's to know if, you have your webmaster go on there one day and pluck out a few of the services under your, professional plan, for example, but keep the price the same. So therefore, you are offering a little bit less, which I'm assuming is reducing your cost a little bit. Therefore, you can, because you've got costs that are rising. Yep. So if you can pull a few of the costs out to offset the costs that are rising, still charge the same price, it's just math. Your margins still remain the same. And who's going to know, right? So that's what it is. And it's funny too, because it's there's nothing illegal about it, or unethical or amoral. I mean, businesses can charge what they want for their products. PandaDoc's under no obligation to announce to all of its prospective customers that, well, we used to offer all these services, but now we're offering a little bit less. There's nobody telling you that you have to do that. There's no requirement. You're selling your services for your price, and you can determine what those services are.
I think I can imagine like the product team and our customer success team listening to this podcast and being like, well, Gene, our NPS scores would go down.
Right. And it's really not. First of all, it's, the other question is about, how you roll something like this out. Now, one of the biggest advantages that, businesses have today in this inflationary environment that our parents or grandparents didn't have in the 70s when there was inflation is that we do have a lot of data. So listen to PandaDoc. If you decide to offer a subscription plan, but pull away a few of the services, maybe for your existing customers, you keep the services the same because they're your existing customers. You don't want to piss them off. But then for new customers going forward, you offer the same with a few less services. We can do that nowadays because we've got the data to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of a tactic.
And it's just a matter of testing, right? Seeing like, all right, we're just testing something out, see how it runs for 6 months to a year. And, if it has a negligible impact or a good one, that's good advice.
The testing part of it is really, really, critical. I think you're right about that. I also think you need, you look at your demographics. Listen, you might have those customers that you're like, listen, these guys they're not that profitable for us anyway. So, we can try it out on them. I'm sure like any company, PandaDocs has got your gold customers that you don't want to upset. So maybe you don't rock the boat with them, So there's nothing wrong with testing it out on different demographic groups in your database and seeing what makes sense. Just keep in mind, I mean, again, it's Travis, like we're in this inflationary period. It's going to be with us for a while, probably a good year, if not more. So we got to do what we got to do to maintain our margins. I mean, we have a responsibility to our employees and our shareholders to run our businesses profitably. And these are the kind of things you got to do.
It is. It's true. I think we all hear about like we no longer offer, Taco Tuesday for $1 tacos. Unfortunately, we had to, and everyone's up in arms. And it's like, well, businesses, like you said earlier, they got to keep the lights on. They got to keep the doors open. Yeah. So whatever it takes to do that. And I think there is something to say for testing things out. For our example that we've been discussing here for a little bit, maybe it's if 80% of PandaDoc's customer base are going to be small businesses. Mm-hmm. And if we're seeing that, hey, it costs an extraordinary amount of money to offer 24/7 chat support. Right. And we say like, okay, well, in order to reduce costs a little bit, we're going to remove 24/7 chat support for this specific tier. We're going to test it for new customers signing up and see if that does allow us to, hey, for everyone out there also, this isn't an actual, we're speaking hypothetically. My boss is going to be like, Travis, we're not doing this.
Just batting this around. That makes sense. And by the way, speaking hypothetically, I'm not eating dollar tacos. There's something really scary about that. I don't know. Okay. It's the same reason why I never go to those all you can eat sushi things either. Because there's something like, just doesn't sound right. Okay. So we don't want to mislead our listeners and towards that stuff either.
That's true. All right. So switching gears a little bit, are you thinking that shrinkflation is maybe more profitable in specific industries or maybe in certain parts of the world? And the reason I ask this is because I think about comparisons of like American food portion sizes and maybe European portion sizes. And I'm like, is Europe already experiencing shrinkflation way before we were?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great, but first of all, I think, all of us in America I could do with a little shrinkflation, maybe 5 or 6 pounds. It is, I actually have a joke when I talk about this. I have a picture of Jonah Hill, taken 2 years ago and taking care because he's lost 100 pounds. So my joke is even Jonah Hill is practicing shrinkflation. I mean, how bad can it be? But no, you are right about different industries being more sort of open to that. So I'll give you an example. My business, we implement CRM and software, Salesforce and Dynamics and Zoho and all those kinds of things, which by the way integrate with PandaDocs. Just want to make sure that we know that. But so we just charge by the hour for our work. It's really hard for us to shrinkflation any of that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, it is what it is when you're providing services. So there is that. But I do think that, some businesses that are offering products, number of widgets in a box, you know what I mean? Or number of toilet paper sheets in a roll, that kind of thing. There you've got the more ability to quietly scale that back a little bit more while still offering the same price. So it really does depend on your business.
It's a good example. And I think with services, a number of people listening to this do run agencies and are in the kind of service-based industries. And one thing I've seen, and I don't know if this is just shrinkflation and I'm interested on your take on it, is agencies or service-based individuals who are like, I'm not taking on any new clients right now because I am not going to sacrifice the quality and excellence of my service offering by over inundating myself because I can't hire more employees, right? Or at restaurants, we're not going to seat at those tables. We don't have enough, we don't have enough employees to serve all of you. So I'm just interested. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily shrinkflation, but I do think that is actually a fairly prudent business practice. I mean, it's a whole other topic altogether, Travis, but there's this growth mindset that a lot of people have rather than maintaining profits. And sometimes that growth eats into your profits. And so when I do meet clients, when I do meet companies that are like, listen, we can't take on any more clients because this is, we're at our capacity. So for us to operate profitably and do the best job for our clients, this is what we got to do. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with behaving, in that fashion.
I think it might create a little bit more, whether it's artificial or actual scarcity. Yeah. A little bit of demand there. Right. So
it could, it could, and kind of give you the impression, the prospective client, the impression like, oh, wow, these guys are really hot and, we'll pay more or whatever. But again, that it's not necessarily a shrinkflation issue, but definitely a good management tactic for your business for sure.
So something that I've seen recently in the streaming world is Netflix. They've come out with some new offerings they're testing out. They have a lower cost subscription tier with advertisements on their platform that they're going to be rolling out if they haven't already. They also are going to have an upper tier for folks who want to stream at a higher quality using UHD experiences. Are these tactics you think that are in the same vein as shrinkflation?
More importantly, have you completed Ozark? Because
my whole team is like, you're still on season 2?
Yeah. Because it's really worthwhile watching. It's a fantastic, I think it was a great final season, although it's very arguable. I watch a lot of This Sinner is another one, Travis, by the way. It's another really good show on Netflix.
I need to figure out what's happening to Marty Bird before I get into The Sinner.
Okay, yeah, you got to figure out all Marty Bird stuff. To answer your question is I mean, offering different options is sort of a form of shrinkflation. It's actually a more transparent form of shrinkflation. You know what I mean? Because you're actually telling people, you're going to pay more for this if you want more stuff. Whereas the Charmin with the toilet paper, they're just cutting those sheets in half and still charge you the same price. You know what I mean? So Netflix is actually being more above board about what they're doing, and I think that it's I think giving those options are good. The other option that you also hear of is when you go into retail stores, they give you options to use credit cards or not. Like if you use a credit card, you're going to pay an additional fee, or that kind of stuff is also I think giving customers the choice to do that stuff makes a lot of sense. So I think that giving more options to your customer, I think is a better road to go, in my opinion, than the shrinkflation route. If you've got the kind of business that can offer different kinds of plans and give those options out there.
So how can small and medium-sized businesses maybe test this out in a way? And what are some things to be cautious of, like pissing off your customers to the point of churn?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is pissing off your customers, and when I've always had a practice in my business that for existing customers, whenever even like a rate increase, like an hourly rate increase for our services, I generally don't increase our existing customers. We have like 600 existing customers. Unless they're, a customer's really been around for a while and they're paying a rate from 1994. So you asked the question, what's sort of like the best way to sort of like implement this or test this? You definitely, you want to be really careful mucking around with your customers. That's for starters. To me, it's on, it's for new customers going forward. Yeah. And I think that's the way. You have to be a little bit of patience. Have some patience. It's not going to happen overnight, some of these savings, but I will tell you, man, it's just in this day, what annoys me is when Verizon offers, free deals to new customers, and I'm like, dude, I've been a Verizon customer for 10 years. Why are you not offering me these deals as well? Do you know what I mean? And to go back to your existing customers and rate, and shortchange them on services they've always been getting for the same price, you're going to get pushback. What's better, in my opinion, is if you want to talk about transparency, you can say, all right, well, for our enterprise plan, we're now providing, these services, which were less than what we were doing before. You would consider even telling that to your existing customers and saying, hey, just so you know, for new customers, we're going to be providing this less services, but we're not impacting the services we're providing to you because we value you, and that's not going to change. And that, could be some good PR for your company if you want to go down that road. And for prospective customers, they might never know anyway. So that's the way I would do it. Is I would really be testing this out on new customers and clients, and I would not be mucking around with existing ones unless, again, you're really not making money on some of these existing customers. Which gets back to my data issue, because again, we have data now that people didn't have 40 years ago. Because we all have, CRM and ERP and accounting and financial systems. So we can go back in there and say, okay, listen, I've got these 30 customers that we haven't raised fees on them in 15 years. Our margins are really getting crushed. So yeah, we are going to make some changes to these guys because it's just not profitable. So you can segregate out the ones that really need to be fixed, but hopefully keep most of them the same.
That makes sense to me. That it plays into the economics of it costs more to get new customers than to, expand on your current customers. So don't muck around, like you said, with your current customers. They're more valuable.
We worked so hard, you know what I mean, to get our existing customers, and it just sucks when we lose them, particularly if we lose them over something that was like under our control. It didn't have to happen. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So I don't know. You never take your customers, for granted. That's my feeling. Now, the other thing to think about though is that if you're offering new products and services that you want to shrink a little bit, you're selling a box with 5 less units in it, and it's a new product or service that maybe an existing customer doesn't use. Maybe that's an opportunity to upsell them and still take advantage of that shrinkflated box, only because you're upselling them. You're not taking anything away from them. So it's another thing to think about. Yeah,
no, I like it. That's especially relevant in software as a service. I think about new features that we've rolled out recently, like we now have Panda Notary, for people who want to do online remote notarization, but it's not going to be free. Like we spent a lot of money and resources and time to make that happen, and it's a very valuable service. It's going to be an add-on, but
you're absolutely right. And it's funny. I mean, I thinking about that, and I should have, my Hill column. I didn't make any recommendations, and maybe I should, because even on the hotel example I was giving. I mean, I'll pick on Marriott. I mean, I'm a big Marriott Bonvoy titanium platinum bionic man customer, whatever the high level is. And I don't know, man, and yet I still get dinged, I don't get the little shampoo bottles anymore, or the maids are maybe for your top customers, they continue to get that stuff. But, you can shrinkflate, the ones that are not your top. One of the benefits of becoming a better customer of Marriott is maybe, you get all the full services. But what do I know, Travis? Listen, I'm running a 10-person company. Guys running Marriott are making zillions of dollars. They're smarter than I am, I guess.
Yeah, but your perspective is great. And you answered the one of the last questions I was going to ask you, which is so knowing what you know about what Marriott and Hyatt and Hilton are doing, you going to stop using their services and go to boutique hotels, or you going to...
No, I mean, I probably won't, because that's why they got me, is because, boutique hotels know. There's a funny thing about me. I write a lot about small business. I'm a big small business advocate, and I'm a champion of small business. And one of my sons always makes fun of me, because whenever I travel and go out, I always eat at chain restaurants. I always eat you would think I'd find an independent, small restaurant to eat at, because I'm Mr. Small Business. But man, I'm where's the nearest Outback Steakhouse? Because I know what I'm going to get, and it's, whatever. And it's the same thing in Marriott. I mean, I know what I'm going to get with Marriott, and it's it's easier, and there's more locations, and it's consistent. I'm taking a chance with a smaller hotel or a boutique or something like that. And I think, Travis, you just helped me answer the question that I just posed before. So why don't they help? Well, because they got me anyway. I'm not going anywhere. So you know what I mean? What reason would they have to change? So that's I guess that question has been answered.
I love it. And it's a good example too. And there's nothing wrong with, finding areas of your life, whether that be in business or personal, where you're just a person of pragmatism.
Yes.
You've got your things that are just, you're comfortable with, it's functioning, it's working, until it breaks completely and you have terrible experiences. You have a threshold, a 3-strike rule, whatever it is, you're going to keep using it.
Yeah, you think, well, look at me, I'm a CPA. It should come as absolutely no surprise to you whatsoever by looking at this face. So I'm conservative and my routines, you know what I mean? So going to a random small business for dinner, is outside of my comfort zone.
It's a novelty. We'll chalk it up to somebody else to make you do that.
That's right.
Are there any other takeaways you want to teach us about shrinkflation tactics that you're seeing?
Not necessarily shrinkflation, Travis, but we're in an inflationary period right now. Like I said earlier, it's going to go on for at least another year, if not longer. I don't think it'll be as deep as it was back in the 70s, but it's going to be something we have to navigate our way around. Shrinkflation is just one tactic for navigating your way around inflation. So, like I said earlier, we have data. People are raising prices on customers based on the customers, regions, product lines, margins. You can use your data to communicate better with your customers as well, so that people know that price increases are coming. I have a lot of clients that are taking advantage of the situation and buying bulk, because if you buy low and sell high, right? If you know prices are going to continue to go up this year, buy the stuff as much as you can if you've got the financing and the space for it. That's what they're doing, to navigate their way. And a lot of my clients are, they're buying property, they're buying equipment. There's some tax advantages to buying equipment, and those are good inflation hedges as well. So all of that stuff is shrinkflation is among all the tactics that you need to do to get yourself around these sort of higher cost times. Listen, we've been through this before. Small business owners in the time of Cleopatra were dealing with inflation. There's nothing new. So you got to just work your way around it. That's all.
Gene, thanks so much for coming on the show. Again, folks, if you want to connect with Gene, you can listen to his latest shows by visiting sba.thehartford.com, or you can listen to his popular small business podcast called Small Biz Ahead. Gene, thanks again, man.
Thanks, Travis. Great speaking with you.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Engagement Lab, brought to you by PandaDoc. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or connect with us on LinkedIn. We love to hear from you and what you think of the show.